wrapping up a really amazing adventure of a year filled with highs and lows, but really just magnificently orchestrated process that has really helped me understand how life works and how this whole thing we call ascension or enlightenment works. We talk about ego death, enlightenment, we use these words, but what does it mean? I had a major awakening back in the summer of 2012 when I cracked this equation I talk about and wrote a book about called The Voice Code. Because this logical map led me to discover that there was a 12-stage process that consciousness within space and time moves through. And it led me to see that it was a circle. The 12th stage erased the first stage, like the snake with the tail in his mouth. And then I had myself wondering, well, what's stage 13? And I realized, that would be heaven. But when we go to heaven, we've undone the illusion of having been here in the first place, meaning we never left heaven. And to discover this in a scientific context, it blew my mind. And I started to feel beyond the veils. And my mind never went back. I felt like a spiritual billionaire. And I had a vision of my life having some legacy far greater than I had ever known. And that's what I really wanted at the time. The ego was firmly in place at the time. I mean, my ego was always noble. I always was committed to service. But I did have a need for recognition and to prove myself. And I really didn't understand how much at that time that need for recognition and prove myself was rooted in compensating for some very deep traumas. But over the next, 11 years, I would discover what was hidden. I would collaborate with life to dismantle the very deepest layers of attachment trauma, separation trauma that was underneath the ego structure, which was still firmly in place when this whole process started. And this journey involved me developing tools from that map to actually journey out of the matrix, where I met Jesus, fell in love, he became my teacher and mentor, and then I came back, and I was in for a heck of a ride. In the last week or so, that process is complete. It would take too long to describe all this going on, but it's the claiming of my divine identity here in form as it is on the other side. What was interesting as I was musing a minute ago, I thought I might share with you, was a recognition of how cycles are involved in this process. You tend to think in lines, like growth curves and lines, linear thinking, but nature really is cyclical. Everything's cyclical, and that's one of the things I loved about the voice code. The entire thing was a cycle. There were 3 cycles of 4 stages, and the whole thing was like a paradox. It ended up eating its own tail at the end of it, and it was just immaculate. And I just thought, wow, nature is smart. It's cycles, really cool. I'd never thought of that before. But I was a drummer. I'm a drummer, and rhythms are cycles. And so I had an instinctual awareness of it. And I think that those musical skills helped me as much or more than even the scientific epistemological training. But what was great about this last couple of years as I look back, standing on the other side here, victorious, is that cyclical logic moves in such a perfect way, and it's so much more nuanced than I would have even thought looking at the map I had. There's much more of a deep elegance. One seemingly random meeting leads to, deeper and deeper revelations. An orchestra, there's certain themes, there's certain quality that I recognized from my youth and I was unconsciously still drawn to. It all was alchemized, and it gave me energy, and it helped me complete the job. Think about every relationship you've ever had. Think about the bullies in high school, the romantic relationship that you didn't like the person but you got away, and understand those cycles all have to be completed. Everything that starts, it's got a beginning, middle, and an end. And so before we can really get to the higher level, we have to revisit everything that is incomplete and complete it. Now, what's cool about this, from my experience, is that even though it all sounds real horrible, the truth is you're really close to God at this point. There's not much ego left. And so you're really supported. So the universe is actually quite friendly as you go through this. And it only gives you a piece at a time when you're ready. It's very gentle, actually. But you do go to some tender places because we got to ultimately bring our awareness down into the deepest shadows of separation from when we were born. Shadow work can only go so far, you see, because I had done a lot of shadow work. I needed actual visceral experience in relationship to get some of this stuff. I needed a girl who was actually very much the same, I realized, as my mom, and temperament, sort of like a fake, nice, overly sexualized, flirty liar. But I needed that, and I was kind of attracted to it in ways I couldn't explain, and I rationalized with my mind. And the betrayal trauma defenses kicked in, and I was able to become aware of them as an adult. And then for that person, me to discover with horror that my mother was actually collaborating with her, it was part of a plot. That day, I was listening to Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics. Some of them want to use you, some of them want to be used by you. And I heard about that, and I had been wanting to save her. I was like wanting to protect her from my mom because I still thought there was love there. And so I screamed at the moon and had a memory occur of a satanic ritual that was done as a kid. I was sitting by the water listening to music, and yeah, I don't know, it makes a good story. Because every time we bring some of those ancient things into awareness, they can resolve. They can't resolve until they're in awareness. And if we're in that intimate sense of union with our Creator, and knowing that we are one with it, it's not like a stranger and it doesn't judge, then it's not so hard to move through that stuff. The universe also gave me plenty of money, time, and space to go through it. I didn't have to go to a day job. I'd been doing jobs for a long time, but I got this nice big bubble in which to move through that. And it was a very gentle, beautiful process. And now as it ends up, I feel so empowered. And ultimately what I got to do was be my own hero to save myself, my inner child, from the trauma that was created. And as a kid, and all that's complete. And there's no anger or judgment towards these people. Like, I'm actually kind of grateful they played that role. I mean, I think it's not my team, and I'll never want to talk to them again. But I am grateful because ultimately, wow, we ended up in this wonderful place where I experienced myself as who I felt myself to be in heaven, except here on earth. And I don't have to play by the rules. In fact, God gives you great powers to transcend the rules if you're in service, using your unique gifts. And I just feel so blessed to be alive and so amazed at the cyclical intelligence that orchestrated all this. It's truly mind-blowing. So I think that I'd share with you.